sit. This is Max, and this is Max's roadmap to success. You want to come up here? I normally don't do this, but the camera angle's a little bit low. Come here. Everybody wants to see it, what a handsome fella you are. Come here. Come on up here. Yeah. It's like, I'm so confused. During the whole session, they were saying I can't get on people's laps, and now you're inviting me up. That's kind of the idea. It's when the human asks or gives permission, not when the dog wants to. All right, so basically, we started off the session by doing a little bit of priming the clicker. And so one of the guardians had to actually leave. So we did a little priming the clicker. That only have to do once or twice. And that's where you drop 10 treats on the ground and you click each time the dog licks it up. Now the click is to indicate when you did exactly what I wanted. So never click for the dog's attention. So the video above has some talks a little bit about using a clicker for greetings and to have the dog have a good positive association. So please watch that one. We started off by, after we primed the clicker and that guardian had to leave, we started talking about exercise. The guardians here do a really good job. They exercise him. He gets 2 walks a day, which is most of my clients. But it's probably not enough for him. He's a 1-year-old puppy, and you can see he's doesn't have a lot of, he's thin. He's got a good metabolism. He's got that young puppy energy. So he needs to exercise multiple times a day in shorter sprints. So we went over on thank you, buddy. On walks, we want to make sure that we're letting him sniff as much as possible. Now we have a dog walker, and the dog walker might watch this video. The dog walker, we want you, well, anybody who's walking, we want him to sniff as much as he wants to, as long as it's safe to do so. What people don't realize is dogs burn more energy on a walk by sniffing than they do from the locomotion of walking. Like, you can come up this way. I want everybody to see his profile. And so if we have an artificial deadline of getting back to our home by completing a circuit, a lot of times we don't let dogs sniff. And that kind of takes away, it's calming, better, boosts confidence, gives them data, and it's relaxing as well as burning energy. So there's a number of things that can be accomplished. So when you're walking him, as long as it's safe to do so, let him sniff as much as he wants. Also, give yourself just time. I'm going to walk this direction for 10 minutes. I'm going to turn around and walk the further 10 minutes on the way back for a 20-minute walk. So instead of having to complete a circuit, you're just going for duration. We also talked about scent games, hiding treats around the house. Google scent games. There's a whole bunch of different options that you can use. You're doing a very good job of sitting now. He was jumping up like crazy to start the session. Now he's just sitting to ask for attention. This is great and a good illustration of how quickly dogs can transition if you're consistent with them. He's like, oh yeah? Well, I'll jump up on you right now. You got treats. Okay, we also talked about the doggy stairmaster. We talked about playing fetch. Now, dogs should not exercise with food in their stomachs. It'll be 90 minutes after they eat before they get exercise. So what I want to do, this is one of the things he was doing the guardian. Now, I'm holding treats, that's why he's pawing, but he just jumps up on her and invades her personal space, and it's not hard to see why, because every time she petted him. So make sure that when he's invading your personal space or jumping up or you're pawing or nudging you, you don't give him any attention, because remember, any attention is validating. All right, so basically what we want to do for the doggy stairmaster or the fetch is with an empty stomach, fetch or toss the treats up and down the stairs until the dog says, that's all I'm going to do. I've been up and down 50 times, I'm not doing that anymore. So for the stairs, what I do is I show him I have a treat, I throw it to the bottom of the stairs. When he licks it up, I come up with a funny word. I usually say Jamaica or Cabo or something like that. So he runs to the bottom of the stairs, we say Jamaica. Then he runs to the top of the stairs, we give him another one, and we'll say Canada, and that count each down up is 1, and keep throwing those until he said that's my maximum. Then we want to figure out how many up downs in the stairs before an activity. Maybe he needs 10 up downs in the stairs before a walk to be better behaved. Maybe he needs before the neighbors are out with their dog, maybe he needs 15. Maybe before we're trimming his nails, he needs 25. So we can give the dog a certain amount of exercise and set them up for success. And throughout this session, he gave us a number of illustrations that he was bored. So when your dog is bored or comes over, is budging and barking and nudging you, being a nuisance, ask yourself how long it's been exercise. If it's longer than an hour, the dog probably needs some exercise. Remember, 5 minutes on the stairs is equivalent to like a half-an-hour walk. Same thing with fetch, because those are pursuit games, dogs running. So if we can come up with, and also feeding out of a snuffle mat and feed out of a Mango Paw treat ball and other treat dispensing toys. So if we can now feed him out of a snuffle mat, and he wakes up, we take him outside, he does his business. Bring him back inside, he has to watch the cats eat first, then the humans eat first, then the cats. And remember, all you have to do is eat 5 bites or something. Then we give him permission to eat when he's eating and go to the green spot and tell him, hey, my dog doesn't like the food I've gotten him, he doesn't really like, he barely eats. Ask them if they have samples. They can give you a whole bunch of samples of 1 serving each, and then just keep track of how quickly he eats each one, and find a brand of food that he likes, and then get a different flavor of bag each time. Maybe you go from chicken to wild, buffalo or whatever the next month, but say the same brand, just different flavors. All right, so we can set the dog up for success before, get him exercise before things, and also recognize when he's naughty or if he's barking or nudging at us multiple times in a row, he needs some exercise. It's better to take him outside and play fetch for 3 to 5 minutes or the doggy stairmaster than 15 minutes of no, 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 and you're just helping the dog practice pestering you, and the dog gets a reaction from you. Remember, good attention and bad attention from humans is almost the same thing to dogs. So you're training your dog to misbehave. And so right now, he wants the treat that I have in my hand. He's going through everything he can to get it. He's been nibbling on my hand. Normally I would yelp, but he's trying to do it to get me to give it to him. So I don't want to give him any reaction. He's jumped up on me, he's pawed at me, he's nudging me, now he's licking my hand. But as soon as he SITs, I'm going to give him the treat. Now I'm not telling him to do it, but it is a behavior that I like. So as soon as he offers a behavior that I want, then he gets a reward. If he does anything else, nothing happens. There's no punishment, there's no correction, but he doesn't get any attention. After a while, he'll start coming and sitting down to ask for that, especially with petting with the purpose of past training, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So get the Omega Paw treat ball, get a snuffle mat, feed the humans first, then the cats eat. When the cats get done, they leave the room, and then we invite him to come in and eat. And when he takes his first bite of food, he's on the clock. If after eating half his food, he walks away, pick up and dump whatever food remaining into the container, then he's done again till the next meal. Now the snuffle mat, like I said, I would usually pick up the whole thing and put it up because you're not going to leave that down all the time. But if you're feeding out of a bowl, dump it, put the empty bowl back down on the ground. Sit. Look how easy that was for you to get the treat. All you had to do is sit. Okay. We also talked about rules. Now the guardians here already have some rules, which is great. He really likes it when you got your thumb on his ear, on the inside of his ear like this. Yes, a lot of dogs like that. And so he's not allowed on the furniture. If you want to teach him to go to the dog bed on command, he already uses it, but if you want to assign a command word, message me. I have videos to show you how to do that. Also, this Martingale Collar, I would probably just have it on him only for the walk. Sometimes they get their paw caught in this one right down here, and they're kind of walking around with their paw caught or get it stuck on things. So I would probably just use this for, and you might do that only, but I just thought I'd mention. All right, so rules, not being allowed on the furniture is one that I suggest the guardians already have in place. I also talked about not being allowed in the kitchen when we're preparing food or around humans who are eating food. The humans should also eat before they feed the dog. Now we also talked about something called a premac. A premac is a concept, means that a less desirable behavior will earn you a more desirable behavior. With him, I did it with the fetch. So first of all, I brought the thing over, he didn't want to give it up. Well, and the guardians were trying to take it from him, which a lot of people do. So your dog won't drop. When he has an object in his mouth, a low value item like a ball or something, pull out a treat and just touch his nose, touch the tip of his nose and just hold it here. And he'll try to take it with the object in his mouth, and when he figures out he can't, he'll put it down, and then when he drops it, you put the treat in his mouth and say the word drop. So now you're putting in context, when you drop things, I will give you a treat, and then I don't show any interest in the object, at least at first. After a while, he'll just come over and drop things for you. So you want to establish a drop with low value items. Now let's say that, now to do the premac, what we're talking about, he came over with the object. I held up the treat, got him to drop it. When he dropped it, I told him to sit. If he didn't sit, then I leaned back in the chair and I continued the conversation with the client, his guardian. If he sat, I picked up the item, and then he got up and I told him to sit again. If he didn't sit, I just continued the conversation, kind of held it here. And as soon as he sat, I threw it and I said the word fetch. When you're teaching your dog how to do fetch, you want to say the word fetch 3 times. As I throw it, I say the word fetch. When the dog picks it up, I say the word fetch. And when I give the treat, I say fetch. So as soon as he sat, that caused me to throw it. So a less desirable behavior in his mind, I want to play fetch. But as soon as I sit, David threw the, whatever the thing was, what I was throwing it for. So a premac is, you could do a bunch of variants of this. The fetch, I think, would be a great one for you guys. So he brings you the thing back, hold the treat out, he drops it, you put the treat in his mouth and say drop. Then you pick up the object, tell him to sit. Don't say it multiple times. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. As soon as he sits, then you throw it. And so after a while, he'll sit faster and faster. Another one that we could do is the door. Hey, kitty. Is we go to the door, we tell the dog to sit 1 time. If the dog does not sit within 3 seconds, I walk away and I sit down nearby and I wait for 1 minute. After 1 minute, I go back to the door and tell the dog to sit. It doesn't sit within 2 seconds, I walk away and sit down this time for 2 minutes. Next time I sit down for 4 minutes, then 8 minutes. I keep doubling length of time. But boy, as soon as the dog sits, that door flies open. So sitting causes the door to open. At first I do with the dog going out or in, whatever they want to do more, then I would do it the other direction as well. So after a while, the dog starts to sit at the door to ask for permission to go out. You can do the same thing for preparing food. So if you go in the kitchen or wherever the food is, before you even reach to open the cupboard, tell him to sit about 7 feet away from you or more. If he sits, then reach for it. And as soon as he gets up, pull your hand back. Sit. If he sits, I reach again. He gets up, I pull my hand back. Sit. That's the 3rd time I've said sit now. And I reach again. And this time if he gets up, I pull my hand back and I just look at the dog. I don't say sit the 3rd time. I just did it 3 times in a row. He should probably sit. And if he sits, then I reach again. If he doesn't sit, then I walk away and sit down. So this might, the first couple times you're feeding him, it might take a little bit longer because you need to be able to walk away and say, look, man, you did the wrong thing, so that if you're not going to do what I want, then the procedure of feeding you is not going to continue. Eventually, you'll be able to get him to sit, and you open the container and put the food in his bowl, and then when you go put it down, if he gets up, pull it back up. Tell him to sit. He sits, then you put it back down. He gets up, pull it up, sit. He sits back down, start putting it down, he gets up, sit. 3 times, I'll tell him, and the 4th time, I start putting it down, he gets up, I just pull it back up, and I look at the dog. If he sits, then I put it down. This is a wonderful way to develop a little bit of impulse control, something that I think will help him quite a bit. So look for opportunities to do these pre-max before you put the leash on him, before you feed him, before you open the door, before you let him out of his kennel, before you get him in the car, out of the car, and so on, before you fetch. So after a while, he kind of knows the behavior that the human wants, and he'll just start offering the behavior faster and faster. Just like when we were playing fetch, the guardian told him to sit, and he sit, and then she reached up like that, and he just took off before she even threw it, because he's kind of gotten in a behavior pattern of doing that. It'd be the same sort of thing for the sits for all the pre-max. After a while, he'll just start doing it automatically. We also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is petting your dog for a reason. Now, this is called demand barking. Now, he's outside, so he could be barking to let his guardians know, hey, I want to come inside. That's not too bad. But if he's barking at me and I look at him or I tell him quiet or anything, remember, good attention, bad attention is the same thing. So he looks at me, every time he barks, every time he barks or does this, I look at him. So he chews on my bracelet and that gets him attention. That's going to make him more likely to do it. So if he chews on your bracelet, remove your bracelet. He was kind of tugging on the mom's skirt, and I told her not to do anything. It's hard when the dog's doing that. We don't want the dog to think that that causes me a reaction, because then the dog's going to pull on clothes for the rest of its life. Now, we can also do what's called a negative punishment. So if the next time the dog paws you, you can immediately get up and leave the room. Now, and close the door behind you, don't let the dog follow you. So when you engage with me, tugging on me to get me to play with you, not only do I not play with you, it causes me to leave. So it's the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. But you have to be bang, bang. He tugs or he grabs and you leave immediately. Don't leave so quickly he rips your deal out. Don't make it a tug of war. So that's a powerful punishment if the dog is protesting. Now, he also barks for attention. And if he's barking at me for attention, I say quiet or correct him. Remember, good attention and bad attention is the same thing. So if he barks at me, I would ignore. And but anything the dog does in your presence that you don't specifically disagree with is looked at as agreeing with it. The reason I ignore in that scenario, he's trying to get my attention. So any attention I give him is validating and rewarding. So I just want to ignore him and be boring. If he jumps up on the guardian, what I had her do is kind of cross her arms like this and just freeze and become boring. And one time he stood there for a minute or two, but usually he gets down. As soon as he gets down, tell him to sit. And if he sits, pet him under his chin and say the word sit. Remember, pet under the chin, never on top of the head. You can pet anywhere you want, but just never pet here, anywhere but here, I guess. And then if all things are equal, pet here, because confident dogs have their nose in the air. So if he jumps up on you, you freeze, become boring, look up. And as soon as he jumps down, then you tell him to sit or to lay down. And when he does one of those things, then you pet him, reward him for doing those things. So jumping up on the human causes him to become so boring, but sitting in front of him gets attention. And those will be augmented by what I call petting with a purpose. Petting with a purpose is petting your dog for a reason. So if the dog comes up and nudges you, which he has a tendency to do with his nose, or paws at you, or barks, or grabs your clothing, and you pet him, then you're training him. And the guardian did it several times. He invaded her personal space, she petted him. He jumped up on her, she petted him. He nudged her, she petted him. And so he's the boss. He tells her what to do and she does it. Well, if he thinks he's the boss, then listening to us is not something he's required to do. So what I would do, the next time he jumps up on you, just freeze, wait for him to get down. When he gets down, then tell him to sit and pet him under his chin and say sit if he sits. If he doesn't sit, then you just, after he gets down, he doesn't get that reward. Now for petting with a purpose, it's if you want to pet the dog or the dog is telling you by nudging, pawing, barking, or grabbing you. Leaders tell, followers ask. So next time he nudges you, give him a counter order, tell him to sit. If he's already sitting here, tell him to sit here or here or here. Or tell him to lie down. He has to do something to change his state. I would not practice shake. It causes a lot of problems, confusion for dogs. So if he sits within that 2-second window, I'd reach over and pet him under his chin and say the word sit. If he does not sit within that 2-second window, I lean back in the chair, pull out my phone, check some emails, play a video game, watch TV, read a magazine, make out with my partner, whatever it is. So show the dog that if you don't want to do what I want, that's totally fine. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to ask you 10 times, but I'm on to the next thing. And it doesn't bother me at all. I'm living my best life. You, the dog, are missing out on the attention of getting it from these fingers because you didn't do what I wanted. After a while, the dog will recognize, I can't tell the human what to do anymore. I have to ask. And better than ask, I have to pay them for the privilege of their attention. What will happen is he'll start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. And when he does, make sure you pet him for that. And like I said, if he doesn't, show him you got other things going on. Now, remember to use the watchword of paycheck. I have a lot of clients that inadvertently reach over to pet the dog when the dog's nudging them or doing the wrong thing. And any attention you give a dog when it's within 2 seconds of doing it is what you're reinforcing. So if somebody comes in the room and sees I'm petting Max and Max is standing, they say, David, paycheck, I would stop petting, even if I did it right. And I say, Max, sit. If he sits, I pet him on his chin, say sit, and I turn to tell the person, I say, actually, I asked Max to get up, or I asked Max to sit, and when you opened the door, he stood up, and I continued petting him, but thank you, because I do forget to pet without a purpose. So even though I did it right, it gives me another opportunity to practice again, and if I argue, that kind of confuses the dog. So paycheck means I suspect you forgot to pet with a purpose. It's not a busted or a gotcha, it's done respectfully. And so we want to help each other out because we just won't realize how often we pet without a purpose. If you get in a habit of petting with a purpose, every time you pet your dog, it increases its respect for you as an authority figure. It boosts the dog's confidence because it's earning the pets rather than just getting for looking like a good-looking dog. Number 3, it helps him practice basic obedience, which is listening to you. Number 4, makes your pets more valuable. Because you don't give those things out for no reason. The dog has to earn them. And that confidence is also something that will help insulate and make him less reactive. Truly becomes a gift. We also talked about passive training that I call, it's really operant conditioning. It's waiting for the dog to organically offer the behavior. So every time that Max comes to you, pet him and say, come. Every time he sits, pet him and say, sit, lay down, drinks his water, call that vodka, whatever you want, Heineken. Every time he eats food, call it meatball. Every time he poops, say business or whatever your command word is. You're putting things in context for the dog. So after a while, when you say sit, the dog's like, oh, sit means if I sit my butt down, you're going to give me some attention. But we're taking out the baggage of asking the dog to do it. We're just waiting for the dog to do it on its own. I'm not influencing the dog. I'm just rewarding it when it does the things I want. Most of us don't reward our dogs the way that we think that we are. When they come to us, we ignore that. When they sit at us, we ignore it. They lay it down, they drop a ball, they take a poop, they eat their food. Unless we're specifically asking them that, we don't give them an attaboy. So they do it and there's no validation or reward. But boy, as soon as they scratch at the door, or bark, or lunge, or nip, we immediately try to correct them. You should never correct your dog for growling or nipping. That's an antithesis of that. You want to just increase distance. But basically, all the things that we don't want gets our immediate attention. All the things that we want, like sitting, coming, laying down, we take those for granted unless we're specifically asking for those. So by being cognizant of that and celebrating the dog and rewarding the dog when it does those things, we can motivate the dog to want to do those things more and more often in the future. In puppy class, we call this celebrate as our watchword. So if I'm talking to you and then your dog sits next to you and you're not paying attention, I say celebrate. And that means you would stop and just immediately start petting your dog as fast as you can. Then you look at the dog's position and you say, oh, he's in a sit. So I say sit, and then pet her as long or as little as I want. So this way the dog starts to identify sitting is a good thing and a sitting is a way to ask for attention. You teach your dog to do this for anything. It's a very easy concept. I taught my dog to grumble this way, and he grumbled a little bit. So every time Quest grumbled, I'd pet him and say grumble. Now I come up and he'll go, yes, that got you all alerted. Be careful. So if I'm petting him right now, I'm petting him for that rewarding. So I started doing it myself, I stopped. So make sure you're cognizant. Don't pet for behaviors that you don't want. Now, if he's fearful and you pet him, that's okay. You can't enhance an emotion, but you can enhance behavior. So if he jumps up and you pet him, you're saying, I like you jumping up on me. He barks and you pet him, you're saying, I like it when you bark. If he's trying to bite your neighbor, you're like, no, that's our Tony. We like Tony. He's a good boy. Well, you're petting me for trying to bite Tony, so Tony must need a bite in his butt. So be cognizant of when you are giving attention. We want to give it a lot. We just want to do it at the right times. All right, we also talked about the escalating consequences, how to disagree with the dog, and how to establish invisible boundaries. If you forget how to do those, you can go to my website and search for the word invisible, or kitchen. And I have videos there that go over, hey buddy, Maxwell. I have videos over that go over how to teach your dog to do both of those things. And I have videos on everything else, like teaching your dog to leave the room like I showed you. Come on, come up here. Come on, Max. No, I want you sideways. So he'll figure this out. Sit. Well, I'll reward the sit. So basically, if you have videos or questions on any of the stuff we went over or anything else, don't hesitate to message me. If I don't hear from you, I assume that means everything's going great. If you have questions or problems, I can usually text you videos from other sessions and help pretty easily. Now, because he is a little bit fearful, we may need to set up a follow-up session and have somebody else come by to work with him, or have somebody come by so we practice the click for looks or some of the other things we talked about in the video above. But if you have any questions on that stuff, let me know. The sooner the better. The longer that you let bad behaviors go on, the more practice at them they become. All right, Maxwell, come on, buddy. This is my buddy Max. He's such a good-looking dog. I was expecting a shepherd. I think he's a Blackmouth Cur mix. Maybe shepherd, Blackmouth Cur, and Border Collie would be my guest. If you're doing one of those panels, the wisdom panel is one that I like. You just make sure you don't do one on sale, because a lot of times the accuracy of the database depends on how deep their data, or accuracy of the results depends on how deep the database is. So if you're going to do one of those panels, make sure you do a good one, or one that's not on sale, and ask them, if you think he's got Border Collie, Blackmouth Cur, and Shepherd, how many of those do you have in your database? If they don't have any, they're just going to come back as inconclusive. So he's nudging me for attention, so I say, sit. Oh, now you're going to be on my lap? Now you're on my lap. I wanted you for sideways so everybody could see. So again, I'll demonstrate this one more time. Now I've got a treat, so it makes this harder. So he really wants these treats. Well, he went straight to a sit. So at that point, I would probably have him come over here. Come. Sit. Sit. So when he jumps up on you, you're going to freeze. When he jumps down, if he goes straight to a sit, make him move somewhere else. You have to tell him to do something else. Otherwise, he thinks jumping up on you. The only way to get the reward for getting off is by jumping on. All right, well, this is Max, and this is Max's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.